gonna start slow. That literally looked like it did absolutely nothing. What?
Hi, hello, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Elena, and my husband and I are in the process of building our dream homestead on 6 acres. I've been pretty MIA on this channel recently because my initial intention was to focus primarily on homesteading skills like gardening, raising chickens, starting an orchard, and all the things you'd expect from a homesteading channel. But the more I thought about it, homesteading is more of a lifestyle and a journey that I want to share with others. So in today's vlog, we are working on making our house a home, starting with the primary bedroom.
Welcome to the primary bedroom. This space is feeling pretty bland right now, and I'm gonna start transforming it by painting this wall. The current plan for this wall is to use a technique called lime washing to get a textured look on the wall. You can see I have 2 little samples that I already tried here on the wall, and these ended up being a lot more gray than what I was hoping for. So I had purchased paint online without ever getting samples or anything like that. I just went from the picture, and as I was painting it on the wall, I realized this was not the look that I was going for. So what I'm going to be doing today is trying to mix in some pigment and then hopefully get this to be more of a green shade of paint. And at that point, I can start preparing for the lime wash process. The color I initially chose was called Wormwood. Online, it looks like a sage green with some gray tones. And after I painted it on the wall, I went back to the description and realized it's considered to be a green gray, and I really want a green. So I probably should have picked a color that was specifically called out as being just a green shade, which Bauwerk does have some of those. So if you are thinking about doing lime washing, definitely get some samples in advance so that you don't have to do what I'm about to do. Luckily for us, we actually have a company semi-local to us that sells colored pigment. From my understanding, you can only use powdered pigment with lime wash. You don't want to use any sort of liquid pigment. So if you run into the same situation as me and pick a color that you don't really like, you probably want to go and purchase some powder pigment to mix in with it. We're gonna see how this goes, but you can see I have a large container of green here. The business owner told me that I'm gonna need a very, very small amount. It will change the color pretty quickly, so we're gonna experiment and see what happens. I'm gonna be using this scale that measures in grams down to 2 decimal places to measure the pigment. Stirring the lime wash is similar to stirring peanut butter. There are solids at the bottom and then there's a lot of liquid at the top. I believe it's just water pretty much. If you've ever purchased natural peanut butter, that's the kind that we purchase. It has like the solid at the bottom with all the oil on the top. So you have to be very careful when you're stirring not to get the oil everywhere. That's kind of how it is with stirring this paint. I think I have everything that I need to get started. I cut an aluminum can, this was a sparkling water can, to be my measurement for actually pulling some of the paint out of the can it came in. And then I went ahead and took a scrap piece of single-use plastic and I cut it in a little square. I figured it would be easiest to measure the pigment on this and then be able to like easily lift it up and dump it into my container. And then this container is what I'm actually gonna mix in. The brush for lime washing is a lot larger than a standard painting brush. You can see it's thicker as well. And so I wanted something I can easily put in here, get my paint on there, and then this bucket is to flick off any excess. So that's part of the process with lime washing is once you have the brush saturated with paint, you want to flick off some of the excess. And the last thing I brought are gloves because I was told that dealing with colored pigment can get really messy. And so I want to be prepared for that. Tear the scale. Put my gloves on. I don't think I want to open that bag until my gloves are on. We're gonna start slow. Don't want to mix in too much green and then regret that. Make sure that this is properly stirred here. I have no idea how much to start with. Okay, that literally looked like it did absolutely nothing. What? Nothing happened. And also the scale is looking very inaccurate with it. Now it's saying that it's -4. Okay, this is gonna be interesting. I guess we'll tear it again. I'm finally getting somewhere. For a while I was not thinking this was gonna work because it just looked gray to me. But if you look at this, this is definitely pretty green compared to my pants, which are green. And then this looks gray. So I have 6 grams of the pigment in this little amount. I'm gonna go ahead and test this on the wall and see if I like the color. And then my plan is to move this to a separate container, mix up some more within this container and mix it all together so that then when I paint it on the wall, at least it's all from the same container and I'm not doing like individual mixing for every single time I'm trying to put paint on the wall. If you see those white splotches on the walls, that's where I've already put some of the Limewash prep coat. So the instructions are to prime the surface that you're painting and then use this prep coat and then paint the Limewash on.
When I initially painted the sample gray spots on the wall, I almost gave up on limewashing altogether, but as I did more digging online, I found that disliking the first color you choose with limewashing is really common. I initially chose limewashing because I love the earthy, organic look it brings to a space. The style of our home is a mix between modern and traditional farmhouse, and I thought it would bring some of the earthy textures I love from the garden inside. As I was painting the green on this wall, I realized I needed a refresher on the technique. I knew that I was supposed to be painting in cloud formations, but what exactly does that mean, and how far apart should I be putting the clouds before blending them together?
It looks like my pants, which is what I wanted. So I'm gonna let this dry and then I'm gonna continue mixing and go from there. I cannot even begin to explain to you how much of a relief that is that it actually looks green. I had a little bit of a breakdown whenever I saw that it was so gray because the paint is so expensive. So I'm really glad that I was able to fix it with just some pigment. Back of the Limewash container says that it takes about 2 to 4 hours to dry. I think I'm only gonna wait the 2 hours, and while I'm waiting, I'm gonna mix up the rest. I'm actually gonna mix it up so that it's all in one container. So at the very least, the color is gonna be consistent across the whole wall. And then once I have it in one container, I'll separate it back into the containers that they came in so that I can properly seal it if I have any leftover or between coats. So that's my current plan. Also, I need to tape around the edges of the walls and the outlets, so it's a good time to do that as well. Georgie, you want a bone? Oh, that's a weird way to eat your bone. Why aren't you in the bed? Is it because your stuffed animal's in the way? You trying to hide it from me? You say, this is my bone. I have a larger container that I'm gonna pour what I've already mixed into and then continue mixing this container here and then hopefully also do this container. I don't know that it's all gonna fit in here, but I hope it does. And then, yeah, go from there. Also got a marker to mark the inside of my can here. I'll just go with it. It's not gonna be perfect, but this is a form of art. Oops, I'm shaking so much. It's been about an hour and a half since I did this little sample area, and it looks a lot lighter than it did before. Here's a closer look at it in the natural light, and then I'm gonna turn on the overhead lighting so you can see what it looks like there. So here is it with the overhead lighting. It's definitely a lot more green than the original samples I painted. To me, these look 100% gray. I don't see any shades of green in that. This is more along the lines of the color that I was going for. So I'm really happy that I bought that pigment and mixed it in. The mixing process took a little bit longer than what I was expecting. I actually am only gonna do the 1 can because I think it's gonna go a lot farther than what I initially thought. The second can I'm gonna leave unmixed because I figured that could be cool to use for another project if I wanna get a different color pigment and mix it in with that. I really hope I don't regret that decision, but I think that the 1 can will cover this entire wall 2 times, which is what I need based on how much space it covered just with me doing that little sample. But hopefully it's not something that I regret. I read online that Limewash can be difficult to clean, and sometimes when you wipe it, the pigment will come off on the cloth or on your hand. So the company that I purchased the pigment from actually gave us some advice and said to mix in egg whites or whey protein. I don't know the exact science behind it, but apparently the egg whites or the protein will bind to the lime, and then it makes it a little bit more sheer, I guess, or just like easier to clean. I don't know how it works exactly, but I'm considering doing that. And if I do plan to do that, I need to run to the store. I'm hoping that you can buy dried egg whites there. I'm not really sure, so I'm gonna have to do some research on that real quick before I go. Regardless, this wall behind me needs to get primed before I do any next steps because I kind of have to get it back to a base layer. And then I have to put on the primer stuff that came with the bow work paint. So that's still a little bit of wait time with painting the primer and then painting that prep coat. So I'm pretty sure I would still have time to run to the store if I need to. I noticed that the solids, including the pigment, like to settle to the bottom. So I'm trying my best to get what I can out of there, and then I'm pouring it back into the original container so I have a way to close it and seal it.
I'll take one more stone. I can stumble onto things, but I could never help you find the way. So if you're ever walking next to me, you can't believe a single word I say. Hey.
I personally hate taping any walls when I'm painting, but in this case the brush is super thick and I'm not painting in straight lines, so I decided to tape all the edges just to be safe.
If it's not too quiet outside, and I could get some sleep tonight. Story, please make it boring.
We are just about ready to lime wash this wall. Last step is to mix in the egg whites. I did check our local Walmart to see if they had egg whites in stock, but they didn't. So I ended up ordering this on Amazon. Now that it's here, I'm ready to mix this in with the Limewash. I called the local company that specializes in lime products. They recommended mixing 5% dried egg whites, by volume with whatever Limewash that I have. So that's what I'm going with. I did the math and figured out that it's about 10 teaspoons for 1 liter. The plan is to mix this with a little bit of water and make a little bit of a paste, kind of like the texture of sour cream. Once I have that mixed, put it in with the Limewash and then start painting, which is so exciting. My initial thoughts on the prep coat is I'm not sure if it's 100% necessary. I haven't done a ton of research into it, but based on the actual texture of the paint itself and how it applies, it seems to apply very similar to primer. I think that it's supposed to help with the absorption of the Limewash. So there is like a little tiny test strip below the outlet over there that I missed, but I don't think we're really gonna be able to tell much difference just from that little test strip. But if you're someone who specializes in Limewash and you're watching this for some reason, let us know, is the prep coat 100% necessary, or can you get away with just primer before your Limewash? All right, first attempt with the egg whites was a fail. This looks way too watery. I don't think I would want this sour cream on anything that I'm eating. And so yeah, I'm gonna have to try again. I would hate to waste this because it is really expensive, but I didn't really make sure that my spoon was clean before doing this. So unfortunately, we're gonna have to try again and see what happens. These egg whites actually smell kind of sweet. If you've ever been around someone when they've made lemon meringue pie, it kind of smells like the meringue, which makes sense because I'm pretty sure that's just made out of egg whites. And so yeah, I'm pretty excited about being able to try this in some recipes as well. Well, that was absolutely a huge pain in the butt. This took me a long time to mix together, and it's not the texture of sour cream, it's more of the texture of like a very, very sticky icing of some sort. The egg white is just super, super sticky, so it's a pain to mix with a very limited amount of water. The idea was just to add as very little water as possible and get it to a state where it's a little bit easier to mix in with the Limewash. I really hope I don't regret this because the Limewash is expensive. Now I have a lot of time into this, and yeah, so it's gonna be interesting. Now I am ready for a snack because that took me like probably 30 to 40 minutes just to mix that in. It's time for a snack. The moment of truth, putting my icing in with the Limewash. Ooh, it's like floating. I hope I don't regret this. I hope I don't regret this. Everything's gonna be okay. Everything is gonna be okay. We are committed at this point. This is just like floating. Ooh, interesting. It just seemed to dissolve. So I guess it is reacting with the lime.
We're here in the studio today to show you how to do our standard lime washing technique. We're using the color juniper.
The first coat was a success. I absolutely love how it looks. On the camera, it looks a little bit more blotchy than it does in real life. I think the camera is kind of focusing on some of those darker areas and it makes it more vibrant, where in real life, everything blends together a little bit better. I learned several things from this first coat. The first is that the prep coat actually does do something. At first I was skeptical and thought that it was the same as primer, but it really does help the Limewash soak in really, really well. Whenever I was brushing my first several strokes, I was like, oh my goodness, I'm running out of paint. I thought that this would go further. And after I got about a third of the way through the wall, I panicked because I was like, I only mixed up that one can and not two of them. I ran and grabbed Alex and he helped me finish mixing the second one while I was painting. It ended up that I was able to finish this whole entire wall with just the one can, but I am gonna need that second one for the second coat anyways. So I'm really thankful for his help because that saved me some time afterwards of having to mix that up later. The second thing that I've learned is that cutting in is super challenging. I saw this on several people's videos where they said that cutting in is challenging because you don't want to end up with a vertical line. So I found the best way to do it was kind of like push my bristles up to the top of the wall and pull away like this if I was doing the ceiling. And then same with the side wall, is never like run your brush vertically, kind of do it in weird patterns. On the instructions that I saw from Bauwerk on their video, they actually do kind of paint a vertical line and then they spread it out. That was really hard for me to do with the prep coat. It was just absorbing so much of that Limewash that I found it really hard to get rid of the line once I made a line. So what worked for me was kind of keeping my brush perpendicular to any edge that I was on. The third thing I learned was whenever I was making my little clouds, I found that it was best to make the strokes as long as possible. If I had shorter strokes, things ended up looking a little bit choppy and I would end up with some pretty dark spots. So keeping them long kept that organic look. The fourth thing is, at first when I was making my clouds, I was making them too far apart and then I was having trouble getting them together and I'd end up with like little white spots only this big. I found that it was better to kind of keep the clouds a little bit closer together so that I could easily blend them rather than keeping them really far apart. Also, the egg white does significantly help with the chalking. Now I can run my hand across it and there's essentially nothing that transfers to my hand, whereas before, if I ran my hand across the wall, there would be like a light chalking on my hand. So the egg white definitely helps with making it a more durable surface, but I definitely think it made the pigment brighter and didn't allow it to lighten like it typically does. I don't know if that's because it didn't soak in as much as it would have typically. I don't know exactly what's happening, but to me, this looks a lot darker than what my sample looked like when I did the small area. This color is a little bit darker than what I was initially hoping for, but the texture is absolutely perfect. I love how earthy and organic it looks, and hopefully it will look even better after the second coat.
Breathe in, settle down, keep it together now. Your kin are all around, holding the light found. The days, they never change to fit the way we made emotion overcame, chasing the cold away. Fall away, where do we go at the close of the day? Hide in the hollows of your faith. Fall away, keep it close always. What we know of love and pain, and all you built up in vain, falls away, falls away. Reaching out for a spark, it's a satellite in the dark.
I'm really excited about the final product. I absolutely love it. It's perfect. It's what I was looking for, and I really hope you enjoyed this video and learned a thing or two. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, and hopefully I'll see you on the next one.